Welcome to Behind the Bars TV. Hope everyone is fit and well. So, haven't got my backdrop on today. Thought I would do it a little bit different. Didn't have as much time either, so I didn't have time to set it up. And I wanted to get a video done for you lot at home who enjoy watching the channel. Now, everyone who's been following for a while will know I do topics on prison news. All prison related, because I know you like listening to these type of topics. And the one I'm going to be talking about today that popped up in the news headline is an incident that happened in HMP Frankland, which is in County Durham, and it is one of the 5 high security prisons, or one of the 5 dispersal prisons in England. So, as everyone who's been following my channel knows, certain words that I can't use on the channel because it will not get monetized and it will not gain the traction that a lot of my videos do, because a lot of my videos recently, it comes up limited, which means it will not get monetized. So you've got to be careful for YouTube which words you use. So this video is about an ex-offender who took his own life in HMP Frankland by hanging himself. And he was a child, I'll not say the word, R-A-P-E. And the article goes on to say a man who was locked up for repeatedly raping a child was found dead in his cell in a Durham prison. In 2015, Scott McClellan, originally from the Blackpool area, was sentenced to 22 years in prison for the assault. He was moved to HMP Frankland in spring 2016. He took his own life in February 2022 after a period of seeming law and being affected when a prison officer who was linked to McClellan's care was moving to a different wing in the prison. Now, I wonder if this period of seeming law was because of what he was actually in for, or whether it was because the amount of time he had to do in prison, because he was sentenced to 22 years. So a 22-year sentence. At the time he was sentenced, I think, because the sentences are halved, so out of the 22 you do 11. But I think now anything that is violent or that type of related, you've got to do 2/3, which would have been nigh on 15 years he would have to spend in prison. So it goes on to say a report from the Prison and Probation Ombudsman outlined that although he had trained as a listener, a prisoner trained by the Samaritans to help provide peer support to other prisoners in crisis, McClellan struggled with his mental health and had repeatedly been put on an act. In the months preceding his death, staff had placed McClellan on suicide and self-harm prevention measures known as the ACT, which included round-the-clock observation and an increase in antidepressant medication. But by the time of his death, the 40-year-old had been taken off observations, as he said he had no plans, thoughts or intentions of suicide or self-harm. A friend who spoke to McClellan in the medication queue on the morning of February the 24th found his suicide surprising, as they had had a laugh and a joke and had made plans to have a chat later. Later in the morning, McClellan asked an officer involved in his care, known in the report as Officer A, if it was true that she was leaving. She said she was not leaving the prison but was moving to another wing. She assured Mr. McClellan that he would continue to receive support from A wing staff and told PPO investigators that the prisoner seemed happy with this answer. But later, as she passed Mr. McClellan's cell, she saw an envelope poke through a gap in the door addressed to her, which had not been there earlier. When she opened his cell door observation panel, Officer A saw McClellan hanging. She immediately shouted for staff assistance and another officer rang the wing's alarm bell. she could not radio a medical emergency code blue as she was unable to join the radio net due to heavy traffic of staff logging in after lunch. A code blue was called by another member of staff. Resuscitation was started by the 2 officers who were joined by 2 nurses, but he was declared dead less than an hour later. Officer A did not read the note that McClellan had left her and was unaware of its contents until after his death. It said he wanted everyone to think he was in a good place, that it was not her fault, but her leaving had messed up his head, and that it would have happened sooner or later. He concluded the note with a goodbye in Polish. Though McClellan's care was mostly well managed in the days preceding his death, there has been confusion about whether mental health staff could attend McClellan's wing as it was in lockdown after COVID outbreak. This meant that the prison wardens did not invite them, nor did they speak to them over the phone. HMP Frankland in Durham is a high security prison with a capacity for 852 men. Well, my thoughts on reading that little bit there, the way that he's done that, I mean, I didn't actually realise it was a female prison officer until I actually read the article there, because that's the first time I've read it out in full. But what that says to me is that female prison officer, even though the offence that he was in for has actually shown him some care and looked after him, obviously he's confided in her and she or he's felt comfortable around her. But it's a sort of, the way that he's left that letter, that poor prison officer who's cared for him showed him a bit of attention. He's then went and repaid her kindness by doing that, because she's obviously going to be traumatised now after that, because she's going to be feeling like it's her fault because she was moving to another wing. He's then went and took his life. It just goes to show what sort of character he had by doing that type of thing. Not only for the thing that he was actually in prison for, doing a serious assault to a child, he then went on to done away with himself in that sort of manner and leaving a note, more or less blaming the female prison officer because she was moving on to another wing. It goes on to say there is 24-hour inpatient care. Spectrum CIC Healthcare provides primary care, substance misuse and pharmacy services. McClellan was the 18th prisoner to die at Frankland since February 2020. All the previous deaths were from natural causes. In their report, the PPO recommended that multidisciplinary act reviews should ensure to include healthcare staff where possible, and that there should be a process in place to enable healthcare professionals to access prisoners if a wing becomes isolated due to COVID-19 or other infections. Now, when it says he was on A Wing in HMP Frankland, A Wing is actually the worst wing in Frankland prison. And what I mean by the worst wing, I don't mean as in the facilities or the way that it's run. It's the type of prisoner that is actually on that wing. You've got the likes of Levi Belfield, Ian Huntley, Wayne Cousins. The worst of the worst is on that wing. And I know that because of speaking with people on my channel, interacting in the comments. Prison staff that have actually been in that prison have actually commented on my channel. And when I've read up on other newspaper articles, that is, Frankland Prison has become known as Monster Mansion. Even though Wakefield Prison is the original Monster Mansion, because of the type of beasts and prisoner that is actually in there now and on that wing. That's why when you see newspaper articles pop up, that prison has now become known as that as well. But I just thought I would cover that case because I know for a certain fact my viewers like these type of stories. They like listening to what's been happening in the prisons, because even though this is in a newspaper article, you never hear of this in the mainstream media, you never hear of it on the news, and people don't really tend to read newspapers that much now, unless it's on Facebook or Instagram or whatever like that, if these type of articles don't pop up, then a lot of people don't know about them, and a lot of your viewers like to listen to these type of stories. And I'm sure a lot of people will be watching this knowing that what type of offence he was in for. People will have their own thoughts and opinions, and I'm sure you will be telling us in the comments. But I just thought I would share that story because it did pop up, and I thought with Frankland being local to me, and with it being that type of offender doing this type of thing to himself, people will find it interesting. But I'll leave that one there for now, people. If you are enjoying the content, remember to comment, like, and subscribe.